my regret is I wish I had been bolder. I know I know it might be something funny to say because people may be watching this interview and thinking, wow, you've done something that I would have never dreamed of
Well,
doing.
the vast majority wouldn't have dared.
I look at other people that did things much bolder than I was, and I commend them. And I just think, I wish I had been bolder.
The project I've been most proud of since starting at Rebel News in 2020 was our Fight the Fights campaign, where we crowdfunded legal defences for everyday Aussies nationwide who received outrageous and often unlawful COVID fines. You can check out the many stories, including some still going on today at fightthefines.com.au, and you can also contribute there to help cover the continued associated costs. Now, if you remember the very first case we took on in September of 2020, just think about how long ago that was. It was a brave Sydney-based pastor who decided to oppose the harsh restrictions by using his lawful, remember that? His lawful outdoor workout time to what he called exercise his rights by working out while carrying signs in protest of the government-imposed madness unfolding across the country. But even though Victor Tay tried to ensure the protest would comply with the insane overreaching rules, the pastor was arrested and charged for his dissent several times. Well, at the time, like all the other cases we took on at fightthefines.com.au, I promised him and you, the viewers and supporters, that we would stick by them no matter how long it would take. It took over 3 years in Victor's case, where sadly most people have moved on and forgotten what they put us through and the courage people like Victor displayed at the time. Joining me now is Pastor Victor Tay to share the outcome of his very long battle for freedom. Victor, thanks for joining me. What has happened at the end?
At the end of it all, the police decided that it was no longer worth pursuing any further, and they just decided to withdraw the charges, and it's all gone now. It's all over. I'm a man without any charges and did not have any fines in the end. So thank you again for your help, your support, and for the generosity of your viewers to be able to at least prosecute this case to the extent that we did.
We all owe you a debt of gratitude that you stood up at that time and that you continued to stand up until the end.
People may be wondering what I've been doing since exercising my rights. Now I'm actually quite involved, like politically, so after that I ran as a candidate for Werriwa for what's now known as the Libertarian Party. And I'm quite involved with that party now in terms of political activism because I've just realized that, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve change, legislative change in our country. There's not really that many ways to do it. And even when we protest, what are we trying to do? We're trying to lobby those that are in power to actually, change legislation. But even when we go to court, we are bound by the legislation that exists. And I think that's even what my lawyers at the time were saying. It's like, look, we can only operate under the laws that exist. So that's where I thought to myself, you know what, rather than try and get their attention through protesting, or rather than trying to operate within the rigged system that they've created through the courts, I'm going to try and spend more of my time just hitting them where it really hurts and where they really pay attention, and that's at the ballot box. So since I started exercising my rights, and after that, the federal election was on, I've really been encouraging people, if they really want to see political change, to really get involved somewhere politically, whether it's a political party or any sort of lobby group, because ultimately, if all the hoo-ha around protesting does not result in sort of change at the ballot box, and the major parties just keep getting in because people just keep voting for the majors, then we're just going to keep getting what we're getting. So people really have to vote different if they want a different country.
I absolutely agree with that message. Again, I'm going to thank you on behalf of everyone for standing up at the time. I'm proud of what Rebel News did then and our viewers who backed us all the way until the end. And I know there are still several cases where police haven't withdrawn. Like we said to you at the time, and we said to everyone else, we'll stay there even when it's not popular anymore. And I think I remember in the first day, I think the first day I spoke to you, I said, because you came out really before it was a thing. You set the trend. You were a trendsetter in the idea of exercise
we
your
were
right.
out there before it was popular, and by the time it was popular, we were on bail conditions and everything. So
and you couldn't participate anymore. But I remember. Do you remember what I said to you? Do you remember what I said to you in those first? I think it was that first day we spoke. I said to you, it probably feels super lonely right now, but I think soon when people realize what we're going through, you're not going to be alone. There's going to be, tens of thousands, millions across the country that support what you did. But it was people like you who at the time stood up early, stood up when it was hard, unpopular and lonely. So you deserve every bit of credit for that. And I think the Libertarian Party is probably the perfect fit for somebody that's tried and when it comes for fighting for civil liberties.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why this is why I did decide to join the Libertarian Party. And like you said, I found that they were the party that was most consistent on libertarian principles across the board. So they're not waiting to see how everybody else reacts to things and having a sort of populist reaction. They have solid principles in liberty. So they were against the government overreach from the beginning. And that's what I appreciate about the party. And that's why I've decided to back them. And that's one thing I think people have to realize is these fights, or the political fight we find ourselves in, the fight for freedom in Australia, will take time. If we want to make change in this country, it's not going to happen overnight. And this is what happened even in the 2022 federal election. People got fired up, they got involved, they didn't see much change, and then they give up. And what I want to encourage all your viewers is don't give up. We are on the tail end of many generations of the push for woke and the push from the left and the push for authoritarianism. So we're experiencing the tail end of this. But what people have to realize is all these things didn't happen overnight or in one election cycle. There has been decades and decades of this push happening. So we can't expect that things will change just overnight. There needs to be a sustained push back. But if we don't, then it's just going to get worse. So my hope is that this generation that has experienced the horrendous COVID restrictions and all this rubbish realize now the importance of our liberty in Australia. And hopefully our generation is the one that starts the uptick back towards freedom, liberty, freedom of speech, and all the things that we've tried to fight for in this thing. So just thanks again, Avi. Thanks again for backing people like myself, and let's keep fighting. And I encourage everyone to join us.
If you think it's important for the world to see how far the state was willing to go to essentially persecute and prosecute heroes like Pastor Victor Tay, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide, because the mainstream media, well, they moved on a long time ago. In fact, a lot of them pretending that none of this really ever happened. So it's up to you guys to share it with the world. And then head over to fightthefines.com.au. Check out some of the stories still playing out as we speak. Yes, for our health, they're still persecuting and prosecuting others. Fightthefines.com.au. You can see all the stories, all the updates. And if you still agree with the mission, consider chipping in a couple of dollars to help us recoup some of those costs of those really big cases we ran, and lots of little cases, and still the cases playing out as we speak. Fightthefines.com.au. As usual, we cannot do any of this without you. So thank you.